Arthur Ignatius Conan Doyle, you've been knighted for writing a pamphlet on the Boer War. What are you gonna do next?
I'm going to create the United Kingdom's most famous fictional character and change the face of forensic investigation for the world.
Wow, that's quite a goal. Why do you want to do that?
Because one day I hope to see Sherlock Holmes played by the greatest actors in human history.
That will be a sight to behold.
Yes, I can't wait until they get to Will Ferrell.
Because that's how you get ants.
I couldn't decide which direction to take on this, so I'll take both. First, Sherlock Holmes. Based on renowned Edinburgh University forensic scientist Dr. Joseph Bell, Sherlock Holmes first appeared in 1886's A Study in Scarlet. Conan Doyle would go on to write 56 self-contained short stories and 4 full-length novels featuring the detective. He maintained literary popularity for... well, he's still popular. Almost everyone has taken a stab at Sherlock. Hugh Laurie's Dr. House, Elementary, BBC's Sherlock, Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of Sherlock Holmes in the 2 movies are some of the most recent adaptations. Will Ferrell is best known for playing an unvaried character in a smattering of buddy comedies.
So hot right now.
As far as critics are concerned, it seems like Ferrell's highest rated movies are either when he plays against that type, like in Stranger Than Fiction, or when his adult man-child antics find the right story to fit into, like Anchorman or Elf. Of course, you can't ignore the influence of former SNL head writer Adam McKay. Ferrell and McKay were producing partners for years and churned out some of the most quotable, funny movies ever. They officially folded their production company in 2019. You get a bit of a change-up when you add John C. Reilly. They may not be the best movies, but they're still highly quotable and usually guarantee a decent amount of laughs. Sherlock Holmes might be the world's greatest detective, but there's a mystery only we can solve, and that's finding anything nice to say about Holmes and Watson. The movie opens on a young Sherlock entering a private school. He's bullied and picked on and develops a crush on a girl he's tricked into kissing a donkey's ass. He swears at that moment he's going to detach himself from emotion. Through sheer force of will, he sucks his single tear back up into his eye.
What's he doing? He's uncrying?
Without the confusion of feelings, without emotions to distract him, he could devote his entire brain to solving crimes.
He then launches into a tirade pointing out all the evidence that the other students have been violating school rules and gets everyone expelled. He's the only student left. The only other person his own age left at the school is a boy named Watson, the janitor's son. And that's it, when Holmes met Watson. We flash forward to the early 1900s in Holmes's house, where he's trying on different hats to see what best suits him, and this is where I'm going to make my first point. To enjoy Holmes and Watson, you need to have a working knowledge of Sherlock Holmes. There are plenty of jokes that don't rely on the Sherlock Holmes history, but to get the full enjoyment of the movie, you need to know some things. Holmes is preparing to go to the trial of Professor Moriarty and provide evidence for his conviction. We cut to the trial where everyone is waiting for Holmes to appear. Meanwhile, Holmes is practicing his entrance. A package arrives and releases a single mosquito. Holmes believes it is Moriarty's attempt to stop his testimony that the mosquito is diseased. Both Holmes and Watson start frantically trying to kill the bug. Watson pulls out a gun and starts firing randomly into the air. The mosquito lands on a case of killer bees. Holmes does the slow-motion mathematical calculation in order to kill the bug without cracking the glass.
Angle of approach. Compensate for warping floor. Count for resistance due to dust motes. Probable outcome. Termination of mosquito. Integrity of bee habitat maintained. Deadly bee swarm averted.
Of course the glass shatters and they're attacked by bees.
Oh, no, not the bees! Not the bees!
Holmes and Watson finally make it to the courtroom last minute, only for Holmes to testify that the man on trial isn't the real Moriarty, but a look-alike and therefore should be released. At a surprise party for Holmes, where Holmes is not surprised at all, having deduced the impending party, Watson and Holmes find a body and a cake. It is one of the witnesses that disappeared before Moriarty's trial. Watson, as the doctor, goes to perform the autopsy. We get some jokes about the state of medicine in the early 1900s. It's shown that Holmes can't stomach dead bodies, which is pretty funny considering that's a big part of his job. An American woman, Dr. Hart, comes in to assist with the autopsy, and we get the jokes about how backwards America is for allowing women to be doctors. Watson hits it off with Hart and confesses that he wants to be made Holmes' co-detective rather than assistant. This is an interesting angle and a strong want for Watson. It's shown that Watson has been serving as Holmes' biographer and has likely been embellishing some of his successes. He's constructed a narrative for the infallibility of Holmes, and the rest of England believes it. Seeking out a one-armed tattoo artist, they end up in the wrong side of town and get drunk. Watson sends Dr. Hart a drunk telegraph. Get it? Like drunk texting? He ends it with an unsolicited dick pic, which requires him whipping it out and putting it on the clerk's desk to tap out a description in Morse code. It was pretty funny. They track the tattoo artist to a gym. There are a bunch of puns in the back of the gym which are enjoyable, including Cycle for the Soul, where everyone's on penny farthing bicycles. Don't overthink it, just let it be funny. Wrestler Braun Strowman makes an appearance. Holmes does the same slow-mo calculation that starts with him tossing his pipe and Braun catching it. So he does this whole flash-forward fight, and then the real fight starts.
Opponent 350 pounds. Use pipe. Create diversion to distract his gaze. Plan of attack. Surprise first blow to center of mass. Gracefully dodge counterpunch. Employ visual impairment.
Braun doesn't catch the pipe.
Oh no.
Everything breaks down after that. I like the idea that they break down the logic of this kind of predictive mathematics. It's ridiculous. Things happen, the plot progresses, there's a murder plot against the Queen. Without any leads, Holmes is led to believe that Watson is the perpetrator. He has Watson imprisoned, and everyone can't believe that Holmes would be so emotionless to his partner and only friend. Holmes finally has an emotional break and sheds the single tear that he cannot suck back up. There's a silly musical number, he runs off to save Watson, only to discover that Watson has been kidnapped. He laments that he shouldn't have spent so much time singing. Watson has left Holmes a clue as to who the kidnapper was. It's Mrs. Hudson, Holmes's landlord and Moriarty's daughter. She's going to blow up the Titanic with the Queen inside. Billy Zane gets a cameo. Titanic reference, anyone? They charge the dock with an army of street urchins and Dr. Hart with Hart's companion. The sailor asks what two women can do against them, and they pull out a bunch of guns and say, "American women," and start shooting. It's pretty funny. Holmes figures out where the bomb is hidden, but now willing to let Watson take on more duties, lets Watson do the slow motion calculations. He can't make it work, so he Leroy Jenkins it and throws the bomb out the window. At the end, Holmes promotes Watson to co-detective, complete with a placard that is about the 10th of the size of Sherlock's. But Watson is happy. Watson gives Holmes with a new hat, the iconic deerstalker. Behind Will Ferrell's Sherlock Holmes is the change of the Holmes character over time. In the beginning, Holmes was a detective that shared his methods with other investigators. Over the years, he has become a hopeless, egotistical jerk drug addict. Dr. House is spiteful to his colleagues, Cumberbatch's Sherlock is practically abusive to Watson. Making Holmes and Watson work really depends on the evolution of Sherlock Holmes' on-screen persona. It's not so much a parody as it is a comedy about the conventions of the genre while still trying to stay within the genre. It's silly, sure, but hasn't Sherlock become sort of silly? He's gone from being a detective to an omnipotent god who knows everything and doesn't bother tracing his evidence. For me, Holmes and Watson sits in the middle of Will Ferrell comedies. It's not great, it's not bad. Without some knowledge of Sherlock Holmes' previous portrayals, you're probably going to miss some of the jokes. I don't think it has a very high rewatchability. It's kind of a one-and-done film. The time period constraints limits the quotability too. If you're a fan of Talladega Nights or a fan of Step Brothers, you'll enjoy Holmes and Watson. It's a fun, self-aware comedy that isn't trying too hard. Enjoy it for what it is, a mockery of over-the-top Sherlock stories that takes your mind off things for about an hour and a half. Thanks for watching Anything Nice to Say. Tune in next time and never be ashamed to like what you like. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell to receive notifications for when we drop new videos. Head over to our Patreon for early access to videos and exclusive content. If you have a movie that you think is underappreciated and want me to see if I can find anything nice to say, drop it in the comments below. We also have a merch store featuring new designs. Head over there.
Yes, I can't wait